Let's jump to this next story, actually. And Luke, I want to throw this one to you if you want to talk about this.
Yeah, I mean, this is a little bit more. I mean, this story, I don't even know where to begin, to be honest with you, because there's a lot of emotions here, but you can start off.
Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine claimed Russian missiles hit Poland and then immediately started ramping up, calling for reciprocation, calling for more aid and more military, directly blaming Russia before too much was known. Now, fair point. This was AP reporting it because a U.S. official said so. For a world leader to then call for an escalation of war and try and drag us into World War III is horrifying. Now we even have NATO countries saying like, yo, this dude's kind of losing it. So maybe it won't be a new world order. Maybe it will be Ukraine sparking World War III. Our foolishness, NATO, joining in the fight, getting into a war with Russia, nukes get fired. But some people have pointed something out interesting. So some missiles hit Poland, right? Initially, it was reported that they were Russian. Everybody loses their minds. Some people said it was a false flag. Some people are now saying it was a false flag done so poorly that not even NATO could pretend it was actually Russian missiles. But if it was Ukrainian missiles that struck Poland, then do we invoke Article 5 against Ukraine?
I thought that too. Yeah, it's up to Poland, I guess.
Poland's like, we declare war on Ukraine. Good. Let's stop giving them money at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, this is just such a crazy situation that could have escalated so fast, and thank goodness it didn't. I mean, I'm from Poland. I love my country. I don't want to see war. It's already horrible that there's war in Ukraine, that so many people have to suffer through this nonsense, and to have people try to escalate this conflict, trying to get other countries involved in this conflict, trying to expand this proxy war between the East and the West is extremely reckless. It's extremely dangerous. There's an article that I just tweeted on my Twitter page from The Independent, talking about how Zelensky is certain that this blast in Poland came from Russian enemy missiles. Again, no one was certain. No one knew what was going on here. But of course, the corporate media didn't wait. MSNBC was talking about retaliation immediately. I have an article here pulled up by the Daily Mail saying the West plots their response against Russia. And again, we don't know exactly what happened here, as right now, the president of the United States, the president of Poland, the head of NATO are coming out and saying it actually wasn't a Russian missile. It was most likely a missile that was provided to Ukraine by the West in order to act like a defense system that could have accidentally or purposefully, depending on what you believe here, could have been a potential false flag, could have not been a flag, could have been a real legit accident here. But with Zelensky's comments here, it really makes you wonder, because they were aggressive, they were hyperbolic, and they're extremely dangerous, not only to the people of Ukraine, but the people of Poland, the people of the world. And this situation is reckless and needs to stop immediately.
We have this article from the Daily Mail. Zelensky insists missile that hit Poland was Russian, despite NATO, U.S., and even Polish president saying it was a Ukrainian air defense misfire. But all agree Putin to blame for nearly sparking World War III. Oh, how about that, huh?
Well, yeah, again, Putin did start the war, and we have to understand here, his major calling card throughout all of this is him specifically saying there's going to be a new world order. We want Russia to be a part of this new world order. So that's one of his major stances that he's always been making as he's been calling out the West here. But this proxy war is, again, reckless, stupid, dangerous, and the corporate media organizations that spread fake news automatically after this didn't offer any retractions, didn't have any edit statements, didn't have any corrections on their articles. The AP literally just changed their article from Russia attacks Poland to something else. I'm surmising here. I'm not exactly saying the exact titles here, but you get the drift of what I'm trying to say here. That they were knowingly spreading dangerous fake news that could have started a global war.
I disagree that they were knowingly doing it.
When you don't know what happened, you can't automatically jump to conclusions and state it as fact. That's what they did.
When the stakes are as high as they are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they did. They say automatically, this is it. We don't know what happened here. And you see how thirsty these people are for a global conflict, which should be prevented at all costs here. Another thing to really consider here is the fact that, governments and militaries make mistakes all the time. And it could just be a dumb soldier. It could be an accident. It could be a miscalculation. And boom, we have World War III. This is why this conflict needs to be de-escalated, needs to be stopped. People need to come to the table, sit down, and negotiate a peace deal immediately now, before it's too late.
I agree that, again, the stakes really are so high with all of this, and it's become just sort of passive, like, well, something else happened today. It's just a headline. But meanwhile, literally the whole world is at stake. With nuclear war, and it's right on our doorstep. And again, as I was saying before about this trend towards destroying everything, why aren't we investing $60 billion or whatever it is in peacekeeping efforts, or trying to keep the peace and just stopping all of this? Whoever's dying on both sides, it's just awful. Again, it's the energy that's being created. There is sadness and destruction and just awfulness that projects out into the world and beyond in a different realm. And it makes everything sour and leads us towards bad.
I wish it were as easy as to just say, we shouldn't have war. But the challenge, I guess, is when you see some of the things that we've seen with ISIS, for instance, and they're not stopping and they're expanding, and the caliphate was growing and growing and growing. At a certain point, it's like you can cross your fingers and hope for peace all you want, but dangerous people start pushing and doing crazy stuff. Now, I'm not arguing the U.S. should have intervened in the Middle East in the first place. I think U.S. intervention caused the rise of ISIS. But I use this as an example of what do you do when you see a country expand, like China's expanding dramatically in the South China Sea. We can sit back and just be like, let's just keep the peace and hope nothing happens, but they keep expanding. The same thing is true. And look, here's the issue. NATO's doing the exact same thing. So I'm not saying that there's any good guys here, but if you're trying to be noble and honorable and just say, I'm going to do everything I can to keep the peace, but the person across from you is just cheating, lying, and stealing, at a certain point, it comes to blows.
I understand that war is certainly a part of our existence in this space and in this realm, but I do not believe in this instance that war could have been averted or it should be averted. I don't understand why everybody, our administration, our country leans into these sort of things. The anti-war effort. Where's everybody that was so upset about war when it was happening in Iraq and Afghanistan? Everyone was like, "Yeah, the Russians are bad. Kill them all."
Yeah, 2014, right after the Crimea annexation, is when it kicked back up. All this anti-Russian stuff.
Well, so I'll give you the gist, I suppose. And this is coming from somebody with no clearance, so I have no idea. But I do know that the U.S. wants control of Ukraine, Western forces, NATO, because Russia controls a large percentage of natural gas flowing into Europe. Which means that the economy of Europe is staggered by Russia. So the U.S. basically wants to take control of Ukraine, control the valves of natural gas into Europe, and then put the pressure back on Russia. Russia refuses, war happens. So I suppose you can argue NATO should not have been expanding the way it was, and we'd avoid war. And high gas prices is better than war.
I think that's a part of it, but I think
we wouldn't have high gas prices. We would have lower gas prices if we had just better relations with other countries and more free trade.
In the market, Russia was charging a lot. And so Western forces tried to build a pipeline through Syria, through Turkey, into Europe to compete with Russia, but Syria wouldn't allow it. Surprise, surprise, Syria destabilizes. How fortunate. And the point is, it's not just about the cost of the gas. It's about how much energy are we getting. So they say the EU was formed explicitly to unify Europe against the growing threat of China. And they need gas, not so much just cheap, but they need more so that they can expand their economy, grow, and be able to compete with the growing Chinese economy. Russia was causing problems in that regard because Russia tacitly works with China. So the U.S. was like, we're not going after China first. Russia's the weak target, and went after them. Donald Trump was right when he was like, China is the bigger threat, and they freak out because they're like, yeah, but we want to go after Russia first. So look, I don't like any of it. I don't think any of it's justified. I think it's a bunch of paranoia, and I understand the arguments people make about the fear of a multipolar world where you could potentially get World War III. But this is what it boils down to. The liberal world order people do not want Russia and China to gain enough power to compete with their new world order, their liberal world order, because they fear World War III would happen if that was the case. So they will do everything they can to dominate and crush their opponents by any means to maintain dominance, because they think if we're not in charge, war happens.
This is what gets me, though. The liberal economic order, the best thing for that, if they really want that to succeed, is to have an alliance with Russia. Russia's in the center of the world, essentially. If you're looking at China and the United States and Europe and all that, Russia's right there. Whichever side Russia goes to is going to gain 60% more. Like they're going to gain so much power. There's so much land that's hard to travel. That is like if you can put troops in Russia, you're good to go on a conflict. So why would they antagonize if the liberal? So that makes
Russia
me think
has
that
the
people.
GDP of Italy. Okay,
But they also
people
control a
need
lot
to
of
understand
oil.
the context here. Of
They
what's
control
happening
oil,
here.
and if they shut off the oil, like it's not just about how much they're charging. It's about are they even going to give it to you at all?
But the more oil we have on the market, the cheaper the oil is. Now, deliberately denying the oil makes the price of oil go up even more than it automatically would. Even if Russia was price hiking it, they would still have to compete with other markets. But right now, the price of oil has gone up so much, mainly because of this proxy war, this proxy conflict.
What gets me is I think that people are manipulating the liberal economic order to go to war with Russia to lose its power. And so that they can be like, well, see, it didn't work out kind of thing. And that there are people in the liberal economic order that are like, they think they're doing the right thing. They think that they're preserving democracy and making freedom. But what's really happening is they're antagonizing one of their potentially greatest allies.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.